Welcome to Village Church Connections. I'm David Pavey. Recently, the BBC News webpage ran a story with a photo of a Chinese man named Cai, C-A-I, who lives in the eastern city of Yangyungang in Jiangsu province. Cai was captured on camera with a can of white paint, painting new arrows on the road at an important intersection to redirect traffic. Naturally, police were soon on the scene, asking Cai what on earth he was doing. He explained that he'd been frustrated by the long delays on his bus journey to work. "I saw that the straight lane was always packed with cars, while the lane that turns left has a lot of space," he told the police. "I thought that changing the sign would make my commute smoother." Traffic police told Mr. Cai that his behavior was very dangerous and it could have resulted in a collision. They promptly deployed workers to repaint the road, and they fined Mr. Cai the equivalent of $150. While most of us can probably muster some admiration for Mr. Cai's initiative, we soon see how stupid, selfish, and wrong he was. The alternative to rules of the road would be chaos, as the police suggested rather politely. When we play a game, we have to follow the rules. When we bake a cake, we have to follow the rules. When we drive our cars, we have to follow the rules. So it is on life's highway. God has given us moral rules of the road. And when we ignore them as individuals, there are consequences. When we ignore them as a society, there are also consequences. A young lawyer once asked Jesus, which commandment is the most important of all? And Jesus answered, "The most important is, you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, and with all your soul, and with all your mind, and with all your strength. And the second is this, you shall love your neighbor as yourself." In our lifetime, we have watched both individuals and society in the West drift away from the Judeo-Christian moral standards. People wanted to be free from the rules of the road of life. I was living in the San Francisco area during the so-called Summer of Love in 1967, when 100,000 mostly young people, sporting hippie clothing and behavior, converged in the Haight-Ashbury neighborhood. 2 years later, the Woodstock Festival in Bethel, New York, renowned for its indulgent behavior, drew an audience of over 400,000 counterculture youth. We don't have to look far to see the results of painting our own arrows on the road of life, so to speak. The decline of community and the rise of selfishness, sexual immorality and perversion and family breakdown and drugs, alcohol abuse, racism and crime, for example. People wanted and still want to be free to make up their own rules of the road. But ironically, it's in obeying that we experience true freedom. One day, a boy declared to his father, "Dad, I want to be free." "Son," came the reply, "son, when you do what you're told, you'll be really free." In his autobiography, A Life in Our Times, writer and politician John Kenneth Galbraith recounts an anecdote about Emily Wilson, his family's housekeeper. "It had been a wearying day," wrote Galbraith, "and I asked Emily to hold the telephone calls while I had a nap. Shortly thereafter, the phone rang. Lyndon Johnson was calling from the White House. 'Get me Ken Galbraith. This is Lyndon Johnson.' 'He's sleeping, Mr. President. He said not to disturb him.' 'Well, wake him up. I want to talk to him.' 'No, Mr. President. I work for him, not for you.' When Galbraith called the president back, Johnson could scarcely control his pleasure. 'Tell that woman I want her here at the White House.' Let's work on respecting God's rules, not repairing the road. And thank you for tuning in to Village Church Connections.